Hey, it's Kley. Welcome to another video. Today I've got a question and answer from a viewer. If you have a question about a tube amp or basically anything, please send me an email at kleysquestions@gmail.com. I have a link in my description. It's a great way to send me questions, give me some nice things to discuss. I really enjoy the conversations with you guys out there that are messing around with your amps. Always stay safe, but also stay curious and keep these soldering irons hot. So let's get into this question. He is responding to my Blues Junior analysis, which is a fun amp circuit to revisit just because there have been a lot of updates and changes. But there's some interesting questions and comments here to kind of summarize. Looks like he's searching for a way to warm up the tone from the Blues Junior 3, revision 3. That's important because actually the schematic review I've done before is not on the Blues Junior 3. So I actually had to track that down, and it actually looks like they made a lot of nice changes to the amp, which we'll kind of take a quick look at. But warm it up. So when I hear the word warm tone, my first thought is that it probably, from an EQ perspective, would refer to decreasing high treble frequencies and increasing maybe some mid-range or bass frequencies. It also maybe could mean something along the lines of like a little bit more kind of harmonic content or kind of some of that warm tube clipping. But I'm going to kind of refer more to the EQ side of it because it's already a tube amp. So my main thought here is to be decreasing treble and increasing some lows and mids. Talked about how he's done a speaker swap, which is nice. He said he reversed the Bill M Sparkle mod, which includes a 50 picofarad cap in C9. It went up to 10,000 PF. So that's something we can take a look at. Wondering what C9 even does. We can take a look at that and try to achieve more of a Princeton reverb or 6v6 sound rather than the L84s. So excellent question. Let's go ahead and take a look. Here is our Blues Junior schematic. I actually really like this schematic. This is really nice to look at. So a couple of ideas that I've got right away. Let's just kind of step our way through the circuit. Here on the input, I really like this 1 meg to ground and 10K here. That actually looks like it's swapped. Sometimes these amps have them flipped around. So like if R2 is on the left side of this 1 meg and the left side 1 meg's over here, that actually forms a voltage divider. So basically bleeds a little bit of your signal to ground, which I don't really like doing at this stage in the amp just because you're sending a very weak signal from the guitar amp into the grid of this pickup. Whereas in this configuration, this is much more similar to what you'd find in a vintage Fender amp. This 1 meg resistor here helps to set the input impedance, and the 10K is a grid stopper, which helps to cut away some high frequency oscillations. So I really like that. We've got 1.5K here. This 47 microfarad capacitor here is fine. You could, if he's looking to warm it up, I wouldn't change it. Basically, if you go from 47 microfarads to a lower value like 10 or 5 or 1 or even less than 1 microfarad, you're going to be cutting bass frequencies. 100K on the plate is good. This is the first area that I would look to make a change is this guy right here, C2, and I'm also going to highlight C8 because they do the same thing. These are coupling caps, so they prevent this high voltage B plus coming from these X positions from going this way. Because if you recall, capacitors block DC voltage. So by the other thing that they do, by their value, they can tend to cut some bass frequencies. And so this 0.0022 is a very low value capacitor, and so it is going to be trimming some of your bass. So I would actually recommend you shift the decimal point over and instead use a 0.02 or maybe a 0.047 or even a 0.1 if you want to really get wild. That will add some bass frequencies back in, and that would help warm up your amp. Okay, next we've got this 100 picofarad C3 cap. This is your bright cap. I've got a video that I've done about bright caps. If you want to know that, check it or do a search for that, or I'll see if I can remember to put a link in the description. You could trim this guy out. You could also put it on like a double pole, double throw switch. So it's on one end of the switch, it's in. On the other end of the switch, it's left blank. You could mess around with the value of it. I personally don't like bright caps. But the idea here is if you turn this input volume control low to like 2 or 3, if that creates a situation where you have too much brightness, then this cap is doing too much for you. So that's when I would consider taking it out. So I personally don't like them, so I probably would clip C3 out entirely. That's just my personal preference, and that would help warm up the amp. Here is your tone stack. You could mess around a little bit with some of these values, like these caps, the value of the caps, the value of these pots, and even this slope resistor. What I would recommend if you want to do that, take a look at the tone stack calculator, this guy right here. And you got a Fender, and what you would do is you would just plug in these values. They're actually probably pretty close. This one needs to be 220 nanofarads, and this also needs to be 220 nanofarads, and then this mid pot needs to be 25K. I believe that I've got that about right. So you could basically play around with these values. So for example, if you want to make this up to 500 picofarads, you could see how it would shift some of those frequencies around, or even down to 100 picofarad. You know, you start playing around with some of those values is kind of a fun way to do it. This tone stack calculator is really nice. You can even see how the controls affect the bass, the mids, and the treble, and just kind of tweak around with that. So if you have too much treble, you'll be looking to make this right-hand side go down. Okay, moving on. Another grid stopping resistor. Now it's kind of interesting to me that the volume control here is placed so early, and there's no volume in here. I guess you have the tone stacks, that's fine. It's just kind of interesting, but there is no bypass cap here on R17, which is kind of interesting. And even, what is going on here? Okay, this is where the fat switch comes in. Okay, never mind on that. But you could experiment with, again, adding a cap that straddles from R17 to ground. Put a capacitor there, maybe like this 47 microfarad to give you a full boost of frequencies. That would boost your overall gain. Be a fun thing to put on a switch for another kind of fat boost, so to speak. We already talked about C8. Again, I'd probably recommend going to 0.02 on that. Now here, he had mentioned C9. That's right here. This is an interesting spot for a capacitor. I mean, so what a capacitor does is, in this situation, it's going, there's a resistor. Well, okay, so capacitors allow AC frequencies to pass through if they're at a high enough threshold. And because ground is on the other side, I think basically what's going on here is high frequencies are being allowed to be bled to ground, while the low, and mid-range frequencies are not. Now, what I'm not sure about is how this interacts with this resistor. I think that if you run an RC, I think that creates an RC filter. Yeah, so if that's low pass, that's exactly what that is. So I think that's what's going on here, is you're creating a low pass filter. To be honest, my initial reaction would be, I mean, you certainly could increase the value. What you're talking about here is a pretty aggressive low pass filter. I guess I would feel a little bit more like I would prefer to do the other modifications I mentioned. Just because this seems a little aggressive to me. I mean, you're at the end of the tone, we've already done our tone stack, so it's after the treble control. It's right before the master. I don't know, I guess I just feel a little funny about this cap here in combination with this resistor. My honest opinion, what I would be looking to try would be start with these two coupling caps, cut out this bright cap, and then cut out C9 entirely. I would do that, and then I would see where you stand. And if you still want to trim some brightness, then start adding capacitors back. But, going from 1500 picofarads to where you're at, which was 10,000 picofarads, that seems to be like a pretty, that's a pretty aggressive. Let's see if we can actually, there's a formula you can do. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, sometimes I have a hard time getting the numbers right, but we've got 4,300 ohms I believe that's 430K. So it's 430,000 ohms. And the capacitance is in farads. Okay, if I'm understanding this correctly, we've got 430,000 ohms, and we've got this 1.5 to the E-9 farads, which is 1,500 picofarads to farads. We've got an RC filter, so again, your signal's coming into resistor, to capacitor, to ground. I believe that's exactly what we've got here, through a resistor, and then it has a potential to go through the capacitor to ground. This is giving us a cutoff frequency of 250 hertz. And this is a low pass, meaning every frequency below 250 hertz is passing. That just feels very weird to me. I mean, to give you some example, I'll pull up a little EQ here on my voice and just show you what that looks like. So this is a low pass. If we put it here at 250, I don't think I can do it actively. At least my brain isn't quite sure how to do it. But you're doing this. So you're basically, all of this blue stuff here, you're cutting away. Whereas it would make sense to me that you would, to warm the amp up, you'd want a low pass kind of somewhere in this range, from like 5K to 12K. You know, this seems really excessive to me. So those are some of the changes that I would recommend. I think that would probably get you into a nice position. So maybe start with those ideas. I hope this is helpful. Voicing these amps is a lot of fun, and I think a neat way to really dial them in to your specs, and I hope that you guys found this entertaining. Please let me know your thoughts and comments down below. Check out some of the links in the description to support my channel, buying some merch, or send me a tip. Anything will help me make more videos like this. And if you guys enjoyed this content, let me know by leaving a comment down below. See you again soon. Thanks. Bye.